Good morning. This is the A to Z podcast. I'm Zach Jackson. He's Andre Knott. A to Z podcast.com, facebook.com/A to Z podcast. Shout outs, as always, to Scene, to the Honeymoon Grill, to American Fireworks, and to you guys. Happy holidays to you all and to you, Andre. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Happy good evening, good morning, good afternoon, to whatever you call it at this point in time and day and whenever you're listening. First of all, let me say happy holidays, and thank you for anyone and all that are willing to come on and listen to the podcast. I know we get people of all ages and all sizes and all colors that come in and join, and we appreciate all of you. And at times we can say some colorful language, but that doesn't mean that we weren't raised by great parents. Shout out to Mr. October. He's still...
We don't see color on anything but ketchup, right?
That's right. Yeah, we know the red, baby. How was your trip to the Rocky Smoky Mountains?
Well, I don't smoke that funky stuff, as you know. I did get a kick out of seeing a dispensary on every corner. I hadn't been to Denver in a very long time, so I thought it was really cool. You know, it's an awesome city. The weather was absolute perfection.
It is.
And I'll say this, shout out Browns Nation. You guys, even you high-maintenance a-holes, have waited for this. And from the moment that I boarded my first flight in Akron-Canton to boarding in Chicago to walking the 16th Street Mall to riding the hotel elevators to being at the game on Saturday night, the Browns showed up. And it was like...
They showed out.
Yeah, they showed up and showed out. And it was like Christmas for those fans. I'm sure it has to be great. To have waited, to have put the time in, to have this excitement level. So, you know, the playoffs were never a reality. You fired your coach and offensive coordinator. But everything's great. Internally, the vibes are good. The future looks good. And honestly, Saturday, maybe 10 in the morning, so eight or so hours before the game, I walked about 6 blocks to get some food. And on every one of those 6 blocks, there were more Browns hoodies and T-shirts than there were anything else as I made that walk in downtown Denver.
Honest question. I want an honest answer. On that third block, did you run out of steam because of the altitude?
No, listen. I'm a washed-up fat ass. Okay?
No doubt.
I'm glad that you asked like this because this leads me to a story that I wanted to make sure that I told. I am a washed-up fat ass, but I can walk. I enjoy it, and I can do it without dying. So one of the things I do, Dre, is when we go to a place, if there's any way that I can help it, I try to walk to the stadium. Right? I do the hotel searches and try to stay within 2 miles. Well, in Denver,
good for you. In
Denver, it's downtown. It had been so long for me, I didn't really remember. The stadium's downtown, but it's kind of on the other side of the highway. So you can walk it, but it's complicated and long. So even though I was maybe like 1.3 miles by the map on the app, it was like over an hour walk. So as you guys know, if you read The Athletic, Jason Lloyd and I are at every game. And obviously on the road, we try to simplify it and we get over there together. So I talked with him on Saturday morning. We were staying maybe 6 or 8 blocks away from one another. So I walked over to his hotel. We got the Uber, the Lyft, whatever it is. And we get in and we say we need to go to the stadium. And the Uber driver says, so you guys... Browns fans. I said, no, we're here to work. And anyway, the guy was from Columbus and went to Kent State and graduated from Kent the same year Jason did. Yeah.
So he graduated with 99?
2000.
99?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were all there. I was there with him too. That's
so, you know, and so not only was he super cool, but then when we got over, we told him, hey, we don't know where the media gate is. And he knew a shortcut to beat the kind of traffic jam that was forming and dropped us off. It was awesome. So when we left the stadium, again, you know, it's really late and it was kind of cold and we could have walked, but there was really not a reason to. So we dialed up the Uber. And it's always an interesting situation because with stadiums now, they have designated drop-off and pickup zones for ride shares.
Right.
Well, 3 hours after the game, that doesn't really apply. And so especially when you're in an unfamiliar stadium, you don't get out often the same place because things get locked up and you don't know where you are.
Right.
So anyway, we end up waiting and we get in this Uber. And as soon as we open the door, I mean, it's just like a Snoop Dogg video. Like I just contact buzz, right? And so we're talking football. I mean, it's only like an 8-minute ride, but we're talking football. And as we're talking about the playoff scenarios, and I'm saying, well, actually, barring something crazy, the Browns actually have a better chance to win the division than the wild card. But I actually think that the Steelers will win tomorrow and end that. And the driver pipes up and says, well, damn right we will. He's a Steelers fan. So he proceeds to kind of talk football with us for the remaining 4 or 5 minutes of the ride. Well, what I had done is put in my hotel first in the lift and then added a stop to Jason's because mine was closer I knew enough to know mine was closer. It's not like I was trying to be first or anything, right? Well, this guy was so stoned that when I got out of the car, he forgot Jason was in there and drove to his next stop and kept Jason in the car.
Smoke weed every day. That's great. All right.
And right away, my instant reaction is, damn, that sucks. And then my second reaction is, I can't wait to tell this story on the podcast.
Right. Well, I'm glad you told it because I've got one similar of Uber trips out of town and marijuana. So we get to Detroit this past season, and there's a hotel out in the suburbs in Detroit that the team stays at, that they want the team to stay at. But there's also a downtown hotel that they let some of us stay, that's non-players, stay at, that you can walk to the park. And believe it or not, I actually, when I'm in Detroit, I like walking to the park. I get to stay in Greektown. If my family's not coming, I stay in Greektown and stay next to the casino and things of that nature, and I can walk to the park, and it's nice. When my kids and family come, I stay in the suburbs. So we get to the suburbs, and this is one of those times my kids aren't coming. So we're waiting for an Uber. It's Matt and I. And he was like, I got the Uber coming. We're good. And I was like, all right. So a guy shows up, and it's like a Cheech and Chong movie. As soon as we open the doors, we're like, whoa. And I just chuckle because I know Matt is just like, prim and proper. And it's just like, and like, I know if it was up to Matt, he was like, oh, we can get another one. And I'm like, nah, he's here. And we proceed to get in the car, and he's playing the worst rap I've heard ever. And that takes a lot for me to say it, but it was just bad rap. And I'm sitting in the front seat, and I'm like, because we had someone else with us. And I was like, I'm thinking the whole time, like, this is the scariest trip ever. And I know what I'm thinking. So the guy's driving 85 miles an hour and suddenly blows a tire out on the highway as he's trying to get us to our location. And then he pulls over on the left side of the highway where everybody else is going 75 miles an hour. Now, it's already been a terrible trip, and now it's getting worse. And, of course, we had dinner reservations. We had our whole night planned. We had, like, a concert that we were going to go to. And we're sitting on the side of the road feeling cars buzz by. So finally Matt gets out of the car, and he watches this guy proceed to change his tire. As he proceeds to change the tire, the guy's telling Matt, I don't have any idea. Man, this has never happened to me. I don't know how this happened. And Matt's like, there's no thread on the tires. And the guy's the worst driver ever. So we're sitting in the car, and, like, I'm literally texting my wife and, like, my dad, if I die or if you don't talk to me anymore, it's because I'm taking the worst Uber trip of my life, and the guy is higher than a kite. And my dad, like, texts back, ha, ha, ha. Like, I'm like, dude, you never say ha, ha, ha. Why is this funny out of all the texts that I send to you? So we get back in the car. So finally the guy figures out how to put the tire on. We get back in the car. He starts driving, and he proceeds to go right back to 75, 80 miles an hour. So I text Matt in the back seat, and I'm like, did he put a donut on the car, or is that a regular tire? And Matt texts back. He's like, no, he put it on a donut. And I'm like, so you're telling me that we're riding 80 miles an hour with a guy that we know is stoned and on a donut at 80 miles an hour? So we're texting, the three of us there in the back seat, we're texting each other saying, hey, let your families know we're about to die. This is it. And this guy proceeded to ruin my sports jacket because he put the jack from the car on top of my sports jacket. It was one of the worst trips of my entire life. Thank you, Uber in Detroit. Very much.
All right, so what should I tell the people? They're listening to the A to Z podcast. Was Zach Jackson in suburban Andre Knott or urban Andre Knott? Which one are you today?
Man, I got to be honest. I ain't been urban in a while. We're going to keep it funny. We're going to keep it all the way funky. As a matter of fact, I'm doing it. It's funny. I've been reading about this because we talk about being Akron to the core, and we are. Just the housing situation in Akron and the suburbs that are outside of bigger cities, how they're dying. It's crazy because, like, all these places I used to grow up in, family used to grow up, no one lives in, and the houses are worth like $40,000, $20,000. You can buy houses. That's not a good thing. No. So it's funny you bring up urban, suburban, because I was talking to my parents about it. And my dad's like, it's your generation that ruined it. We were willing to go to those shitty places and live and drain you guys. You're the one that moved out to the suburbs and got all pussified, didn't want to have nobody to be near you.
Speaking of urban, suburban, and the colored people time on which you generally operate, I want to say something. This is a good Browns transition. Obviously, this is going to be another positive Browns podcast. We apologize for not having a second podcast last week, but Andre just frankly forgot what day it was and when I was leaving. And anyway, we're here now. That's what counts. So,
hey, man, Browns never play on Saturdays. I'm not supposed to remember that
right.
shit.
Yeah. So, never mind. Anyway, that's beyond us, and we have a special treat for you guys later this week, and we're really pumped about that. But anyway, in the moment. So, Dre, as you guys know, I cover the Browns, and generally – Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there's a standard schedule of when we can interview the players, when the coach talks, occasionally hear from the coordinators, all of these things. Well, Mondays are different. Sometimes it's a normal day. Sometimes it's early. Sometimes there's just a conference call because the players have off, or like if the writers are coming off a road trip, they just do it by conference call because there's no point in everybody dead-ass tired coming in, right? So today there hadn't really been any indication, and I thought that I wasn't going to go. Well, then they said there was going to be an open locker room, and there was a certain player that I've been needing to talk to for a story. So I decided I was going to go. And they kind of send out a text to the normal crew and give the time. Well, anyway, as I'm driving up there, I'm kind of sizing up the day because I had some other commitments in addition to us doing the podcast. And I'm like, well, they said 1:30. I'm like, I wonder what. And then I thought, I swear to God, I thought to myself, you know what? Gregg has been on time every time since he's been the coach. And I've been covering the Browns for a long time. And this is not why guys have failed. This is not an indication of how things are or aren't run. But I can promise you that every time they've said 1:30 or 3:30 or 12:45 or 11:15, that a minute before Gregg has come in that room. Okay? And he ended up talking about it at the presser today, but I honestly thought it. And, I am not, first and foremost, I am not getting into the debate of whether they should keep Gregg because I think that's a couple of weeks away. And B, I've seen it. I know both sides. I have my reservations. There are areas in which he's won me over. The team is winning. The team has responded to him. They're playing with a level of discipline. The other night, the bad team melted and shot itself in the foot. The Browns won the game. They kept their composure. True. This was brought up today. I'm going to find the exact quote here. About being on time. I just think
about him being best friends with Phil Jackson.
Yeah, well, he knows everybody. Pretty soon it'll be he knew Michael Jackson too. But here's what he said. I have to be the same accountable as everybody else. Say what I mean what I say. First one here, last one to leave. I learned this a long time ago too about being on time. Being on time tells everybody when you're exactly right. When people are not on time, it's because of one of two things I tell these guys. Either it's not important to you or you think you're more important than everybody else. That does not work in this league.
Wow.
And again, it's just little things, and there are valid times that all of us have been late, right? But I think in this league, Dre, where the margin is so small, and we've dealt with Browns teams that don't have good players, hopefully that problem's over, right? Sometimes shit just totally hits the fan. But in most cases, the margin is so small. And I think what he's done, and obviously the bar was pretty damn low, is I think he has set a couple of expectations, which is culture, what really means the most to you, right? And I think he's asked adults to be adults. And I think you've seen a team grow up. And I don't know that this will continue. This is a super unique situation, the way it has all gone down and the way certainly the Browns have played in winning 4 or 5 and all this. And I understand because I can get behind it. Well, they've beaten mostly bad teams. They have struggled against good teams. But guys, this is a step in the process. Win when you're off. Win on the road. Win when you're. This is a team that has not won shit for years, right? And I just see little things that are really, really encouraging. Simple things too, right?
And they're
really good.
And they're real. And they're real. Let me add this to your story because that's a great story about what Gregg has done about time. And I love that quote. And I agree with it wholeheartedly. In life, there's a lot of different things. But when you're in the same building every single day, and when I got to be certain places where my money is involved, you better be on time. And that's the first rule of life that you learn. And I'm glad Gregg brings that up. I was just with Josh Cribbs for the last hour and a half before we recorded this, and we know he's a special teams assistant, and he's in a weird situation. As he told me, he was like, "Hey, Hugh Jackson gave me my opportunity." He goes, "Our whole coaching staff, thanks." He goes, "We can't be like the fans because none of us will be here without Hugh bringing us here, and we know things that we can't talk about." But he says, he goes, the one thing with Gregg that he respects, and because I said to him, I go, "You're a coach now. You want to have an identity as a coach. What are you taking from Gregg?" And he said, "It's funny you bring that up." He goes, because discipline has not come so much from Gregg making players be disciplined, but he goes, he makes the coaches become more disciplined and how they go about coaching and what they do in life. He gave an example. He goes, every coach is supposed to be behind certain lines. Or, if you've got, you get the get back guy and everything else. He goes, Gregg will literally call you out during watching film with the coaches if you're not standing in the right place. And Gregg told the coaches, if you guys don't stand in the right place, how the hell are we going to get the players to do what we asked them to do? And I thought that was a great nugget into what Gregg has done to not only change what we see on the field, but and he sees it and he knows it. And like you said, this is not the podcast to promote or say he should or should not be the head coach after January 1. But when you talk about where discipline and things of that nature come from, one of the assistant coaches just told me how Gregg puts them in check of, we got to check ourselves, because if we don't, we can't check the players. And I think that's a great inside view to some of the little things that he's changed.
Absolutely. Like, I just think a little being an adult goes along. We've always had this conversation, right? Like,
I know, right.
And some of it is a young team, right? They've constantly had young teams, and guys are struggling enough to figure their own shit out, right? But now they've had some confidence. And again, the other night in the post-game locker room, like, it was wild, it was fun, and they earned it. But I think it was part exhaustion from the altitude and the body clocks being off and all of that. Like, it was a more professional locker room. And again, Kevin Zeitler said to me what he said to me after the Bengals game, which was, hey, now that we've won these games, we're excited. And it goes back to what we've thought all along. Now that we've won, we can say, damn, we should have won earlier. We should have handled business earlier, right? Now we can say, like, we've been here before, and the offense wasn't great tonight. The defense bailed us out. Baker was off, and then he was awesome on the biggest drive of the game, right? And all this stuff that could have gone wrong. Like Brian Body Calhoun, he said to me, he goes, you remember the play where the Broncos call the timeout, and they come out, and they have 12 guys on the field and get the penalty on 2nd and 7? And I said, yes, sir. He goes, you know what I'm over there thinking? That used to be us, man. We used to kick ourselves in the ass so much. That used to be us. That's not us anymore. And so I'm in the corner of the locker room talking to Body because he made that big play on the last drive, and because he's just an interesting guy. He's a great quote. He's not a great NFL player, right? But he has seen some shit, and he bared his soul to me about how hard 0-16 was. And we went from a conversation about Gregg Williams and going forward on 4th and Case Keenum to he goes, you know what? I woke up at 5:30 this morning because my body's on Eastern time. And he goes, I flipped on NFL Network, and on the screen was this whole list of the worst quarterbacks in the league. And I thought to myself, well, our quarterback used to be on there. And he goes, and they came back from commercial, and you know what it was? It was Baker highlights. And then he talked about that. And he said, I'm just telling you, he goes, we expect to win now. He goes, we are doing the little things right, and we are carrying ourselves. And so, to me, it's just that stuff that is so much more important than what the Steelers did or didn't do, what did or didn't happen in that Oakland game, right? Like, this season has taken a million twists and turns, and for everything you want to say, if they had a kicker early, if they'd have gotten rid of Hugh, well, if the quarterback doesn't get hurt, all these things that have happened. But the Browns were always not only a young team, Dre, but a completely new team. They were always going to be judged by the back half of this season. And in the back half of this season, they've shown that the future should be very, very bright.
I said this in the podcast last week, and to play off of what you're saying, that I know it's very fun to look back and say, well, if they would have did this, they'd be in the playoffs. And I say no. I truly feel like they needed to go through everything to get to where they're at. There was a player that talked about, I can't remember whose quotes I read, but saying this was the Oakland game all over again. This is we didn't finish in Oakland. You can blame the refs, blame this, but we were this close, but we didn't win. You get in that same 4th down situation, and I love the conversation. How nice is it to have a couple things late in the game not go your team's way, but they still win? That builds confidence that we've never seen before. because that's not how it's worked in Cleveland, unfortunately, since 1999. How many times have we seen you go for it on 4th and 1 or you make a big decision, and then for 5 days, Cleveland media, all we do is rattle our brains about that was a terrible decision. That sucked. And I know you avoided all of our text messages in the second half of the game last week, and good for you because we went nuts. Our trilogy of texts, and you try to show out and show all these texts you got on Instagram. So I go, look at this asshole. He goes, that's all of us just texting. He's trying to show people he got friends. It's the three of us. Anyway, I remember as they went for it on 4th down, I was mad that Gregg called the timeout. I'm like, if you're going to be aggressive, you can't call timeout. And I was still mad about what Joseph did when they had 4th and 1 on the other side. And he showed, I don't want to talk about the game getting too fast for a head coach. Vance Joseph, the game is going too fast. You can tell on quick decisions or slow decisions he made. But on that 4th and 1, Baker says they had a quarterback sneak lined up. Gregg says today that everybody wasn't on the same page. He called the timeout. I hated the play call, but I didn't hate that they went for it. Even though I said in the same breath, dude, you're going against Case Keenum, who sucks. They barely have scored all game long. Take the 3 and walk away. But I wasn't mad. There's a difference in the past, Zach. I would have been like, oh, they're going to lose. That was the dumbest decision ever. I would have killed Gregg for it. I don't kill Gregg for it at all because I got what he was doing.
Yes.
His whole thing was one play, we win the game. He said it all the way back to Hard Knocks and talking about putting his balls. You got to put your balls in the C gap.
Yes.
That's him. And how did they end up winning the game? By blitzing on 4th down. Every coach doesn't do that. How that works going forward and who he is and what he is and what Freddie Kitchens is, I don't want to touch that or go near that at this point. But I do love a coach that stands by something and means it. I think
Absolutely.
that goes a long way in life. I really do.
Listen.
Because even if you're wrong.
Yep. Hey, we could have that discussion.
Go ahead.
We could talk ourselves blue in the face on that discussion. And A, not be right? And B, not know, because we don't know. There's a lot of building that needs to be done, right? The Browns have proven that they can win a road game when they don't have their best game, right? But I also think, and I don't disagree with anything you said at all. I think the one counterpoint, if it's even that, is the Broncos who had coached with no confidence in themselves. So why wouldn't the Browns turn around and go for the hammer right there? It was 2 feet, and you have Nick Chubb, who's been awesome, right?
Right.
In retrospect, I understand the consequences, and I understand that the Broncos were one more short pass and slip tackle away from kicking a field goal and winning. But overall picture, now 40-some hours removed from that, being back in Ohio, I look and say, if you were going to say this is how we play with balls, if you're going to say we're not perfect but we're going to do this, you have to back it up by doing that, and I don't have any problem with the decision. I don't.
Right.
I don't.
And neither do I. Same with defensively, how they call the game. Look, that Denver team, and you said this, and I'm glad you said this, it's exciting that the Browns are winning games. It's exciting that the Browns are doing what they're doing. But they beat some – and this is the NFL. I got a text today that I love from a friend who said it very well. He goes, I hate parity. I like when teams dominate. I'm sick of officials. Yesterday was a tough day to watch football, probably because it was so damn exciting to see the local team play Saturday night. It was weird. It was a weird Sunday. It really was, because it was just like there was no games that you gravitated towards on Sunday afternoon for whatever, whether it be because your team wasn't playing or whatever else. The league is in a very weird place because parity is what Paul Tagliabue wanted a long time ago, right? That was what, he wanted every city to feel like they had a chance to win a Super Bowl every year. And slowly but surely you have that right now, because I got to tell you, with just a Monday night game to play in Week 14 and 2 games left for everybody else after that, or Week 15, whatever week we're in.
Yeah, Week 15.
I can barely tell you, though. I think I know who the final 4 teams will be, but you can change my mind very easily or very quickly. So good for the Browns for putting themselves in that mix of the parity, of being a team that can win on any given Sunday, of being a team that can compete with just about any team on any given Sunday. Because, the team that I think is going to win the NFC, the Browns went to their dome and played them. Yeah. Played them like it was no big deal earlier this year, with a different quarterback, with a different head coach. I think that says a lot about where the Browns are at. And as much as we're trying to avoid the elephant in the room, the Haslams have the toughest decision of their whole ownership's life coming up in 3 weeks.
Well, I would say this.
They really do.
We've made our feelings clear on the Haslams. What these guys have done, Greg and Freddie, is they've left the door open for the Haslams to reinsert themselves into the coaching search, right? You can take that however you want it. It's the truth. Yeah. And listen, if we're not going to do it, because we talked on air and off that we're not going to do it, and there'll be a time for it.
Right.
I could sit here and make a really good case for Gregg Williams, right? I could. I'm not sure I could have done that 3 weeks. Matter of fact, I am sure that I couldn't have done that 3 weeks ago, but I could do it if we were going to do that. And to your other point about the parity and where the league is, that money that you spent at Summit Mall yesterday on those spoiled-ass kids that don't wear shirts to meet Santa. If I told you right now that you had to take that money and put it on some team to win the AFC, you would have exactly zero confidence in whichever team you picked, and that's a good thing because these playoffs are going to be awesome and they're going to be must-see TV.
Yes, they are. Yes, they absolutely are. I'm glad that my son don't believe in the big fat white man. That tells me I'm raising him the right way. I'd rather my kids not believe in Santa. My daughter does, but AJ's like, I don't believe in it. He goes, I don't think he's real. They're like, what do you do when your kid says that? I just laughed. I think he's like, I ain't smiling for this picture. Let me say this. Baker Mayfield didn't play his best game, led. I talked to Bernie Kosar about this today, and I thought it was awesome. The play that they did score a touchdown on late, really cool to see him and recognize what was out there and change the play. Really cool that Freddie Kitchens has given him the keys, and it's because he works his ass off. It's because he studies his ass off. It's because he's gained the trust of his coaches. Not every rookie quarterback could have stepped to the line of scrimmage that changed the play, flip-flop guys the right way, and call the slant and get guys lined up and get that touchdown. Not many guys playing in their first NFL season could do that. But there are a lot of passes that were overthrown, and was there a lot of, you could tell, tension that he didn't get out early in the game. The Browns could have won this game running away if Baker plays better. He didn't, but they still won the football game, which is tremendous.
Well,
which is
I agree.
Awesome.
I agree. Here's my view. The Browns are the better team, right? The Browns got the better quarterback. The Broncos were all banged up. The Browns had a really solid start defensively. They were flying around. I thought after that, though, the Broncos were really prepared for I thought they knew exactly what the Browns' weaknesses were on both sides, and they attacked accordingly. Obviously, at home, that defense is better. And they do. This is how you beat the Browns. You throw short passes and you make them tackle. You keep their blitzers at bay. It came down to 4th and 10. You can't do anything about the blitz. Greg sent the house. Jabril makes a great adjustment. Jabril makes a good play. It was the second best play of the game. It was huge. He's a hero, and the Browns, I think, deserved to win because they persevered, because Baker delivered when it counted the most, and because, like I said, the Broncos all of a sudden froze, left the door open, and the Browns kicked it in. So I expect the Browns to beat the Bengals, who are hapless, who are hopeless, who don't have any of their guys, have two absolute clowns coaching the team. And then, we'll see what Week 17 does or doesn't mean to any team. It doesn't look like it's going to be the Sunday nighter now because if the Ravens lose this week, the Ravens no longer will control their own destiny. We know the Browns are all but out of the playoff race. But like I said, these are positive steps being taken. Baker leads people. Baker is accurate, and these are great lessons. He need to go on the road and bounce back from a bad half, right? That is a huge lesson. Next year,
right? Absolutely.
Probably the Browns are going to finish in third place, which means next year they're going back to Denver, and Denver ain't going to have Vance Joseph.
Ooh.
But the Browns are going to stroll into that game.
Or Case Keenum.
Yeah, the Browns are going to stroll into that game thinking they can win, and we'll see what happens. But positive steps are being taken, and winning games on the road and winning games against teams you should beat and winning games in which you didn't just light people up. And Greg, very self-assuredly pointed this out today. The Browns have won of their 4 wins. 2 of them, they just crunched the team. And the other 2, the last couple weeks, they faced some adversity. They had to come from behind, and they have done it. And again, Carolina might go from 6-2 to 6-10. The Broncos are never really a real playoff contender when you look at how shitty their offense is. But going out there, getting behind, letting the defense get after you a little bit. I mean, Joel, who's been your best lineman, gets beat on the strip sack.
Right.
Baker gets caught forcing a ball, which is going to happen. Like I said, there's a whole new set of challenges coming, and this coaching thing is going to be complicated. And, it's a shame the season's almost over because of the momentum with which they are playing. But there is no way to spin it other than the future being really bright and it being exciting times for the Browns. And, again, to go back to the top of the podcast, everybody who's persevered and waited for this, subscribe to The Athletic and enjoy the shit out of it. What else can I say?
Yeah, two things. I got to say this before I forget it. Remember what I said when Driscoll came in the game for Cincinnati when the Browns were down there? When I compared him and the redhead, and I was like, I'd rather face the redhead than this Driscoll kid.
Yeah.
I've been told that the coaches with the orange helmets feel the exact same way. Just remember that this week. Other thing I want to bring up is Jabril Peppers. I think this is a lesson for all of us, Andre not included. I'm going to speak in third person so you can think I'm a dick because I want people to pay attention. Forget the Michigan thing because that's immature and childish if you judge a player because of the way he went to college. That's dumb. Jabril didn't do a lot in his rookie season. But probably a lot of it having to deal with where he was lined up, part of it being a rookie, part of it being the expectations, part of it being the game is just so different from college to pro. And you can get away with just being a great athlete, even at a school like Michigan that plays a Big Ten schedule. When you're a top 5% athlete on the field in college, you can move a guy around and you can give him a handful of packages and make him look like the next coming of Deion Sanders or Charles Woodson. But when you get to the pros, and I think this happens in all of our careers, you and I both have been in jobs, and most people listening to this podcast, we've all been in jobs where people didn't take advantage of what we did best, right? Where, you were just a body that needed to fill in where they needed you to fill in, and who cares that you can type fast, or who cares that you can eat more burgers than anybody else? You're going to make the fries. That's just how it works. Jabril Peppers didn't look like a first-round pick in 2017, and I think part of it was he played in a different county than the team was playing when they were on the field. Part of it probably it takes a little while for any player to adjust to being on that level. But obviously this year, and it's easy for me to say after the game coming off of Denver where he has that interception, he has that sack. If you watched, he's made plays. He's hit. His biggest play last year was in a practice last year where he hit a guy and knocked him out, right?
Yes.
Like in training camp. And everybody wrote about it, and then you never saw him again. He has been around the ball more. He had a big hit right before the sack, if you're really watching the game, where he knocked the receiver's helmet off as he came in to clean up. I think that was on a third down play. I think all of us, it's a lesson in let's be careful in judging young players too soon because Jabril Peppers looks a lot more like a first-round pick. And I'm saying even before Saturday night this year than he did last year.
No doubt.
Because he's playing in a position that plays to his abilities and to his aggressive nature. And Gregg Williams was great in giving him credit today for also using his intelligence, for knowing that he had saw the play that the last play where he makes the sack. That was a play from earlier in the day. He saw the guy in motion. He read it, and he comes through that hole like a bat out of hell because not only physically is that what he can do, but mentally he was prepared, he was coached up, and knew. And look, I'm not going to make him out to be Charles Woodson now. I'm not going to make him out to be an All-American. I'm not going to make him out to be a Pro Bowler. But it's nice to see when you put a guy in a situation that fits his talent, he's able to go out there and make plays and win games for you. And that's credit to Gregg with 2 Gs, who didn't use him that way last year and used him in a way to protect his ass, probably because he didn't have guys that could cover and play his defense. And I made the joke after the game, hey, if you see Jabril at the local CV, get that man some love. But in all honesty, I think a lot of us got to be careful, and me included, in judging players before we should judge them. And he was a perfect example of that.
One quick follow to that, and just a quick one because I do plan to write the story at some point. But I think it was the Ravens game that they won where Jabril dropped the punt, right? And
yes.
A bunch of idiots, tweeted him and called him a fuckhead and told him to leave and the Michigan sucks and all this. And shortly after that, he started playing really well. I think it was the Tampa Bay game that he was really good, and he's been good ever since. So I I at times have gone up to different players in the locker room, some on the record, some off, and said, hey, I'm writing about Jabril. Looks to me like he's playing better. What do you think? And one player told me this a couple of weeks ago. I said, hey, on the record, where do you think Jabril's gotten better? And a player looked at me and he said, off the record, last year Jabril was worried about a lot of shit he shouldn't have been worried about. And I think that goes to not only being a rookie in this overwhelming experience, but the defense. Jabril couldn't control that he was told to line up in Toledo, right? But being a first-rounder. But this whole stupid Michigan-Cleveland thing that some people push. And I think we all just become more comfortable in our own skin. I think we forget that these guys are real people, and so when they are rookies, it's not only a humbling experience, but they're picking up their whole lives and moving somewhere. In many cases, they're having money for the first time in their lives, right? They're under tremendous spotlight, which Jabril is one of the most famous college football players of this decade. Now, whether you want to argue about that's because he came in as a hyped recruit and had 3 highlight plays as a freshman, or he was really that good, we can have that argument. But there's a lot to process there, right? And he just is doing I think he is a smart guy. He really is. He is a cool guy. I've gotten to know him. Even last year when he was playing like shit and the team wasn't winning, he was a stand-up guy for our job in the locker room, again, on and off the record. And he's a guy that I root for, not just as a journalism dork who wants a good quote, but as a guy who has endured and taken it personally and worked himself to be on the positive side of the conversation. Another thing I want to do, Dre.
Let me get one more thing on Jabril as we're like adding running for mayor of Cleveland. And this is the last thing from Cribbs, and then go back to what you're going to. Cribbs says for as much as what we don't see at practice, what you can't see as a reporter, what we don't see as fans. He says everything that we give credit to Baker for being a leader and driving his guys and pushing his guys. He goes, the guy that's always yapping at him back, yelling at him back, trying to make the defense better and the offense better. Mm-hmm. He goes, at practice, when you watch Jabril go at that offense, and he goes, even if it's scout team against the offense or number one defense against the scout team, he goes, the guy that's pushing the buttons, talking shit, getting everybody going, making sure guys know where they're supposed to be lined up, making sure the offense is taking care of their job, is Jabril Peppers. I just want people to know that as we move forward.
Well, listen, you can't lead until you can play, right?
Right.
In high school football, it's nice if your seniors are carry a 4.0 and carry their Bibles around and care about make sure the freshmen and sophomores get rides to practice and all that. But if those guys can't play, eventually
– Thanks, Coach Mangini. Thanks, Coach Mangini.
You know what? Speaking of Coach Mangini, I cannot wait to sit down with Joe Schobert and tell him about the white linebacker story. Tell him he got to the Browns 9 years too late.
I can't wait to hear about it. Oh, shit.
Hey, we got to get out of here. We're on the clock, but couple announcements. One, we do have a big-time guest lined up for later this week. So whether that becomes our only other podcast of the week, whether that's a bridge to another one, whether he actually comes through, I think he will. We're excited about that one. Next week with the holiday, we'll try. I don't know. It's going to be weird losing Monday and Tuesday to the holiday and then some other things. But we are super, super, super appreciative of the year that we've had with this podcast, of those of you guys who have reached out and bought T-shirts, who have spread the word. A lot of the messages I've gotten, especially lately, are, hey, my brother, my cousin, my coworker introduced us, told me to come, and now I can't wait. Appreciate it, all this stuff. As we've said to those of you over the years who have accused us of hating the Browns, we weren't hating the Browns. We were telling you the truth. We always said the Browns getting good would be the best thing that's ever happened to this podcast, and God damn it, here we go, right? We can show you the numbers.
No doubt.
So,
right. Baker!
One other thing. If you are a procrastinator like me, and I just paid an outrageous shipping charge on Saturday morning for Christmas gifts because it occurred to me that Christmas was 10 minutes away, American Fireworks is our sponsor. They're friends of the podcast. They are diehard Cleveland sports fans. They do gift cards. They will give you shit to blow up at your New Year's Eve party. They have always been awesome to A to Z listeners, to us in particular, but people have gone in and said A to Z sent me, and they've been known to take care of you. So keep that in mind, and they're always open at AmericanFireworks.com. I'm going to tell one more travel story that I've been sitting on, but I'm going to let you finish if you got any parting thoughts first.
I did on everything he said. We appreciate you guys. I know we have our own ways of going about it on social media, and we got our own way of banging on different people, but we do appreciate that you guys come here and give a shit to listen to us talk and BS. We do stand by when it comes to talking about teams. We don't lie. You may not like what we say, but we don't lie. We tell you the truth, and it's been fun to watch the Browns. Hell, we had one of our own friends mocking us, talking about how everybody was at party Saturday night because the Browns were finally good. He said he was going to be the last one to get on the ship, and that's fine. I want to ask you, we just are appreciative. We will get to you next week, however we can. I want to hear your story about travel. But as we walk away from this, I'll be on News Radio WTM 1100 all week long, filling in for Triv. If you got nothing to do during the week, it's a good way to get me out of the house. So don't question my
one
sanity.
old blowhard filling in for another.
I ain't as old as big fat as him though. There's something else I could have said there, but I'll walk away. Other thing that I want to know for you, what was it like being in a city and in a state that had legal marijuana?
To me, it's no different. I will say, in all honesty, I fielded a couple calls from last week from friends I hadn't heard from in a while, wanted me to bring them shit home. I wasn't going to go there. But, I mean, I have vices, but that stuff is not one of them. And my whole thing was when I went out on my walk on Friday was just to get a picture for Instagram because, like you say, I just use Instagram to try out my joke material, which is true. So, I just wanted to snap a picture and get in one of my cheesy taglines and go from there. I didn't give it a thought any other way.
Right. And that you do that and to be Lima. But anyway.
We won't have the Roger drugs discussion.
But you didn't go to any like bars or restaurants and see the smell of it outside, things like that. I just know that's happened to me in my travels to Denver and Seattle.
No, I
it's
did
just
not.
A different world.
I did not smell it except in that Uber on Saturday night. I promise you, not at all.
Good for Denver, because I've been there and you smell it and see it everywhere. I told this story when we were in Seattle. We were at like a nice pub. We walk outside, we order a pizza, and everybody's like, "What's that smell?" And it was like our parents. It was like two 60-year-olds smoking a joint, like sitting at a table waiting for their pizza to come. I was like, we are in another place in time.
All right, so as we get out of here, our Uber driver being so stoned that he left Jason in the car is only my second favorite travel story of the year. My first one goes all the way back to week 2 into New Orleans. And if you've ever been in New Orleans, the airport is a pretty good way out of town. It's all highway, and you get into downtown. And I was staying maybe a mile from the Superdome. Again, I like to walk to the stadium if I can. So on the way in, whatever morning I was going in, I looked over maybe 3 or 4 miles out of town, and I saw this plaza. And I saw a Nike outlet store there. And I must have needed something specific, Dre, because it just clicked with me. Like, right. I'm going to keep that in mind. And so the next morning, I woke up, and I was like, you know what? I've been traveling for 20 damn years, but I forget something every time. Every time is my first time out of the house.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there was a dollar store or a drugstore or something in that plaza. I'm just going to look up where that was. I know it's not far. And I'm going to get an Uber or a Lyft and go over and check out the Nike store. So I did. First I was there before they even officially opened the doors. Went in, looked around. Like I said, I forget what it was. Maybe it was somebody's birthday or something like that. Went next door, got my stuff. And it was the same way. I got in the Uber, went down the road to the highway, got dropped off right there, and came back. So I come out of the store, I dial it up, and this older guy comes and picks me up. We make how you doing? Where you going? To the Marriott such and such? Yeah, sure. So he looks at me and he says, do you mind if I just take the side roads instead of the highway? I said, no, man, I got no problem. I said, I'm not from here. It's all the same to me. He goes, all right, that just gets tied up this time of day. I said, okay. So I'm in the back seat, and I got my nose in my phone. I'm not even looking. I'm not paying attention whatsoever. We're going down this 4-lane road, 35 speed limit, whatever. All of a sudden, he yanks the car over and like almost comes to a complete stop. And I'm like, holy shit. So I look up. And I look to my left, and there's a truck there. I didn't know if the guy cut us off or what. And the driver looks at me, and again, he's pretty old, and he says, hey, man, I'm really sorry. I said, well, you don't got to apologize to me. I'm just glad everything's all right. I said, I didn't even see. He goes, you didn't see her? I said, who's her? He goes, you didn't see that piece of ass walking down the sidewalk? And I go, no. And he goes, listen to me, man. He goes, why do you think at my age I have to do this? He goes, because I got a lot of problems, and one of them is paying for ass. And I go, what? And he goes, a lot of weeks I got the best girlfriend of money can buy. And so me and the 75-year-old Uber driver had a super awkward last mile back to the hotel.
I bet. And in New Orleans, you can catch some stuff down. I hope you didn't shake his hand afterwards.
Sorry, Mom. I meant to tell you to cover your ears.
Sorry, Miss Jackson. Woo! As you're telling that story, I just thought of something. People that actually have the imagery and the thought process to fulfill what I'm getting ready to say, we can make you a ton of money. Imagine shooting an A to Z driving Ubers. Whereas you and I in the front driving and letting people in, and we have a camera on that. Because isn't it the most awkward? Because think about the most awkward thing about Ubers to me is that initial awkward when you get into somebody's car and you do Zach? Andre?
Yes.
Yeah. Like when you have that awkward moment or when you have that lift, like, I just think that it would be incredible television, incredible online video. Let Andre or Zach drive the car with the other one sitting shotgun, and we let people get in and we drive them around and we tell our stories and I think that would be tremendous television that would make all of you guys cry laughing.
Like carpool karaoke with extra bullshit on the side.
Yes, exactly. Oh, it'd be so good. We got to do it. Somebody out there, I'm telling you, the off season is coming for both of us where we get about 2 months where we actually don't work, but we do. Do it. Hey, how about that? You're going to go – never mind. I was about to say you're going to an off season where you don't got to travel the country looking for the next quarterback in the Cleveland Browns, but you still have a coaching.
Yeah, I'll keep myself busy.
How about that?
I'll keep myself busy. Believe that. I'm old and got vices
probably
too.
Go to New Orleans.
Like that Uber driver, I'm old and I got vices to pay for.
Yeah. Hey, it rings true to our one rule or two rules of life. There's only two things undefeated, boys and girls.
Yep. And with that, we'll see you next time on A to Z.
Konnichiwa, old man.